Hi, Brendan. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi.
You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. Okay. Hi everyone, I guess. My name is Brendan Mills. I'm from London, Ontario. I'm a varsity athlete at McMaster University. I play volleyball there. Played volleyball my whole life. I'm in third year, 20 years old, and I'm an environment and society major at school.
Very cool. So, why don't you give us a little overview of what your mental health journey has been like?
Yeah. I guess through my life, um, growing up, I didn't really have too many issues with my mental health, I guess you could say. Nothing that ever really concerned me. And I never really talked about it with my family or friends or anything like that. Sort of until up around when COVID hit. I'm a pretty social individual, so that was super difficult for me, and I got into some pretty dark depressive spaces then. And leaning on my family and stuff during those times was important, and kind of finding ways to keep myself occupied and feeling like I'm moving forward. And then I think once I kind of worked my way out of COVID and into university at the start of 2021, I was pretty solid. I felt like I was moving forward with my life, and I was happy most of the time. Didn't deal with anything out of the ordinary. And that kind of continued through to the end of my second year last year. Had a really great summer with the national team this summer. Was super happy in really good routines. And then this first semester kind of started to deal with some um, pretty serious anxiety, um, definitely some depression, in a way that I hadn't felt in my whole life before. So kind of figuring out how to navigate that was difficult. It kind of came from a difficult relationship um, that was going on at the start of the semester, and trying to find a way to navigate that relationship, and sort of a lot of stress around what was the best way um, to navigate it. And there's also been ups and downs with volleyball, which I haven't really dealt with in my life before. I feel like I've gotten super lucky in terms of the way things have panned out for me, um, most of the way through. And over the past couple months, of course, turmoil in this relationship and volleyball um, definitely took a toll on my mental health, and was dealing with a lot of anxiety, depression, and I don't know. I'm sure some people can relate to this, but one of the things that um, my anxiety especially really took an impact on was my eating and my sleeping. And obviously, as a varsity athlete, these are things that directly affect your performance. So for me, um, when I got anxious, um, eating became a lot harder. I would lose my appetite, and then dropped a lot of weight because I just like couldn't eat enough, couldn't focus in practice, um, was just upset a lot of the time. Then it was a perpetual cycle because I wasn't sleeping well, which wasn't good for my mental well-being anyways. And then on top of losing a bunch of weight, which I knew that I needed to perform at my best, um, it was kind of a loop because I would start getting upset about that, and then anxiety, depression, like all just got worse. So I had to kind of lean on others and realize that the relationships that I had super close to me were going to become even more important than they had been before. And for the first time in my life, reaching out to counselors and kind of admitting to myself and other people that I was going through things, and I needed help to navigate these feelings because I didn't know what to make of them. So, but yeah, been on the path to healing for sure, and I'm doing much better now than I was earlier in the semester. And yeah, it's perfect time to kind of share this story, I think.
That's great to hear. And now you're mentioning at the end that you took that step to reach out for help and access counseling and tell, like, I don't know, friends, family. How would you describe kind of taking that first step? I know it can definitely be scary and hard to kind of make that first step and kind of admitting to yourself that, okay, I need help, and then admitting, like, telling others, like, I need help. So could you tell us a bit more about what that was like?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was extra hard for me because, while I was always happy to hear people out that I knew were dealing with mental health issues or whatever it may be, I'm always happy to talk to people when they have issues, but it was like I couldn't I couldn't relate. And I think I was always kind of just under the impression that I was immune to this. I was
Mhm.
immune to I was immune to these feelings taking me over, and really like having a grip on me. Um, and that was scary. I think that feeling kind of when I was in my lowest, just being like, I seriously don't have any other options here. I need to reach out. I need to lean on others, and that was definitely difficult for me. As I've been relatively independent my entire life. Just in terms of the way I do things, I always want to be able to do things on my own. So yeah, taking that first step was super difficult, but kind of reframing the way that I saw things using this um, difficult sort of like failed relationship instead of letting myself wallow in sadness or whatever it may be. Okay, what can I make of this? Like, this is an opportunity for me to rebuild these relationships that are super close to me that I kind of sacrifice to put energy into one person. And I think that mindset switch really helped me open up to um, admitting that I have problems with other people. And once I kind of, let my walls down, um, it was immediate, the effect, in terms of like feeling better and just every day, much better since then. So yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible how so many people, like myself included, I'll think, like, hear about people going through things, and I've always just thought, like, oh, that'll never be me, and I'll never experience that or feel that. Like, I just couldn't comprehend it. And then it happens, and you're like, oh, wow, this is actually something that could happen to me too. But it's so good to hear that you took that step, opened up, and kind of let those walls down. And so, as an athlete, how have you found that your mental health kind of influenced your training and your competitions, and then how they in turn kind of influenced your mental health?
It's yeah, it's funny. I think for most of my life, um, volleyball was a release. Like,
Hmm.
you go into the gym and you can kind of park everything at the door, um, leave it all in the change room, and once you're on the court, just play for a couple of hours, and you don't have to think about all the external things that might be going on in your life. And I found that kind of for the first time ever, um, these issues in my personal life were bleeding onto the court, and I couldn't focus. And I mean, it had a profound negative impact on my performance and playing motivation. And I knew I had to do something about that because my sport has never felt like that in my life before. So taking those steps, obviously, opening up, even speaking to my coach about it so that he understood what was going on and that this wasn't some kind of like random lapse of just kind of poor performance.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone was super good about kind of allowing me time to work myself back in. And over the past month or so, I would say it's been like again feeling like kind of that mindset switch. Like, okay, I really do need to um, take all these thoughts and feelings that I have with me, put them in my backpack, and leave it in the change room. And yeah, it's been super good release, like to just keep playing and work my strength back. And I think once I was able to do that, it was much easier to sleep, much easier to eat because I knew that okay, I'm back. Like I'm happy playing volleyball again, happy in my sport. And I think that kind of helped me in my outside issues, because I knew that if I fixed those things, it was going to translate to the court. So that was enough encouragement to kind of get me back on track, which was great.
Absolutely. And you kind of mentioned a bit about your coaches and teammates, but how have you found that the people around you, so teammates, coaches, as well as family, friends, classmates, how have you found that they've impacted your mental health?
Um, yeah, I mean, like I would say it's night and day. Just allowing these people around me. I think that was the biggest thing. When I was kind of in my darkest spot, I wasn't allowing the people around me in,
Mhm.
um, or I wasn't inviting them in. And
Yeah.
I think that's been the best thing about um, working through my anxiety, um, depression is like I have built so many relationships, built them up to be so much stronger because um, my friends and teammates, my family even understand that I like have full trust in them, and you know I think that was like huge in terms of building these relationships up to be something that I could really lean on going forward. And putting that trust in people is a pretty amazing feeling. And I mean, they've all come through for me. It's people I've been with for years. So yeah, it's been pretty amazing to be honest.
Absolutely. And I find that the more that you open up and are vulnerable with others and they are trustworthy, it kind of goes both ways. So then they feel more comfortable opening up to you and kind of going to you when they feel like they have something that they need to talk to someone about,
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's honestly nothing more important when dealing with mental health issues.
for sure. Now, this is a bit of a tough question, but what would you say that your biggest struggle has been?
Um, Overall, I would say my anxiety and overthinking. I think I'm
Hmm.
a chronic overthinker in more than one area of my life. Um, and obviously, like as a student athlete, there's extra things on your plate for you to think about. Um, so yeah, just managing that, and then um, having to take the extra time to take a step back and try and look at the big picture and understand. Okay, is this really where are my thoughts taking me here, and is this really where things are going to go? Is this really what's going on, or am I just overthinking this or anxious for no reason? I think being that type of person, it just takes a little bit extra effort to kind of um, reassure yourself, and constant positive affirmations that hey, things are going to be okay and everything is going to turn out how it's supposed to. I'd say yeah, for sure. I think I don't um, come across that way too, which kind of makes things harder. It made it a lot harder for me to be open about it, just because I think in my day to day life, like I come off as pretty relaxed. Like I don't share a lot of these feelings with a ton of people generally before. So that made things a lot harder. But I'd say that's been my biggest struggle.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like our own minds can sometimes be our worst enemies. We tend to sometimes
Yeah.
like catastrophize things that aren't actually that big of a deal, but in our heads, we sometimes make them out to be a lot bigger. But um,
Certainly.
yeah, in terms of that, what would you say you've used or found helpful in terms of like coping strategies or techniques that have helped manage your mental health?
Um, I think the two biggest things for me, and this one is super simple and something that I never really thought about until this summer actually when my our mental performance coach kind of got me into it. But just breathing exercises, taking taking time for yourself, and I guess it's a bit of a practice in meditation too, but just
Mhm.
focusing on your breath, slowing your heart rate down. And I think that kind of gives your brain a second to slow down as well, and um, kind of view your thoughts as just passing, and spending less time processing them and just viewing them more objectively. I think that's helped me a lot. Um, and the second thing I would say is positive distraction. Um, so, I mean, if I have too much time to myself to overthink about something, it's like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and get some schoolwork done now, because that's a positive distraction, and that's gonna help put my mind in the right direction here when it's trying to go
Mhm.
in 14 different ways. I think that's also helped me quite a lot, and that can look like a lot of different things, whether it's like reading a book, listening to a podcast, or like I said, schoolwork. I think those are the two biggest things for me that I've kind of used.
Yeah, for sure. I know, especially like as you're mentioning earlier, you suffered a bit during COVID due to kind of like the social isolation piece. And I think that's a big thing that people have kind of dealt with over the last couple of years is just being stuck with themselves and just like the ways that their mind works when they're alone. And yeah, as you said, positive distractions are great because if you just sit there alone with your thoughts for an entire day, that can be a lot. So it's
Yeah,
good to kind of have those outlets, whether it's sport or journaling or meditation or music, as well as those like tasks you can do. So that's really good.
definitely. Yeah, it's huge.
And so we're basically done, but I have one more question, which is what words of advice do you have for someone that's currently going through a mental health struggle?
Um, I would say just be confident that you'll wake up feeling better the next day. Um, and even if you don't, I think kind of going to bed at the end of the day with that mindset, um, it's so much easier said than done. But
Hmm.
um, just trying to put your mind at ease before you go to bed, and I think there's something to be said for there are really hard days and just getting through those days. But just knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel or some hope, um, as soon as you open your eyes in the morning, I think that's um, kind of framing your situation like that can really change things. I know it did for me. So that's what I would say at least.
Yeah, I love that. I think there's a quote along the lines of like every day is a new beginning. Um,
Mhm.
because yeah, sometimes like especially if you have a tendency to overthink things in the evening and like end of the day when you're tired, it can kind of be even more magnified. And if you're thinking about things coming up in the future, it can be very easy to exaggerate the issue when really just going to bed, waking up the next day, it might not seem quite as bad in the morning.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
All right, well, that's it, but thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It was sweet.
Take care.